In 1985, Nintendo released a masterpiece of a game that would go on to revolutionize the entire industry and catapult the Nintendo Entertainment System into a global phenomenon. Super Mario Bros. Was really the game that defined the action platformer genre, and would inspire a slew of other side-scrolling games, some of which would even grow into the behemoth franchise that the Mario series would eventually become. Super Mario Bros. Innovated with its colorful graphics, addictive gameplay, and its cross-appeal to both amateur and hardcore gamers. In 1993, the game would be polished up and included in Super Mario All-Stars for the Super Nintendo, alongside its sequels, both the Japanese and US versions of Super Mario Bros. 2 and Super Mario Bros. 3. In this video, I'd like to take a look at both the original 1985 version of Super Mario Bros. And its remake from Super Mario All-Stars. Which version of the game is better, or at least, what does each version do well, and what are the, pardon the pun, pitfalls of each? Okay, so when it comes to the graphical capabilities of the NES versus the Super NES, there's really no comparison in terms of what both consoles are technically capable of. The NES has a color palette of 56, with the background palette capable of displaying up to 13 of these colors at a time. In contrast to the Super Nintendo's 15-bit RGB 32,768 color palette, with up to 256 simultaneous colors, it's really no contest in terms of which console can display the more vibrant graphics. In terms of the two Super Mario Bros. Games, however, let's look at the individual games in the context of the console that they were released on, rather than just a side-by-side comparison of both versions. Super Mario Bros., when stacked against both games from other consoles such as the Atari, as well as other launch titles for the NES, is clearly in a league of its own. For the time, Super Mario Bros. Graphics were state-of-the-art, and while sure the backgrounds were solid colors of blue and black, they were offset well with white clouds, green hills, and brown bricks and ground. The different levels varied in tone and colors as well, with the underground and castle levels featuring different shades of blue and red. Power-ups, blocks, and coins sparkled in shades of yellow and brown, making them really pop out as little golden nuggets that the player just had to collect. The designers really utilized the limited graphics of the NES in any way they could, and even subtle changes, such as making the ground and platforms in certain levels white, gave off the illusion that Mario was running around a winter wonderland. The character sprites are really well designed too, and yes, while not overly impressive by today's standards, brought a whole new level of detail to the game. The Super Mario All-Stars version of Super Mario Bros., while less groundbreaking graphically, has a charm all its own. With the Super Nintendo's more impressive array of colors and technical prowess, a lot more detail was possible in everything from the backgrounds to the sprites. The backgrounds are full of vibrant color and detail, with everything from the bright shades of green hills and blue skies of the overworld, to the dark gray backgrounds of the castle levels with their exquisite level of detail. Each stage has a look and feel of its own. Even subtle animations in the backgrounds, such as twinkling stars or wavy water, help set a new level of atmosphere to the game. The sprites are also more detailed, with Mario and Luigi actually differentiated slightly in their design, as well as the various enemies and objects. Sound and music were another huge innovation from Super Mario Bros. Composer Koji Kondo strove to enhance the game as a more emotional and physical experience for the player through the music and, quote, to convey an unambiguous sonic image of the game world. In compositions such as the classic overworld and underground themes, Mr. Kondo composed perhaps the most iconic video game music of all time. The bouncy sound of the overworld theme complements both the platforming nature of the game, as well as the colorful look extraordinarily well. This holds true with the other themes too, such as the dark, ominous sounds of the castle theme, the plodding, bouncy bass sounds of the underground, and the sort of floaty, cascading music of the underwater levels. The sound effects were another huge element to the game, with the very satisfying sounds of the power-ups and coins, and the very unsatisfying sounds of getting hit by an enemy or falling down a pit, adding even more depth to the gameplay. If I were to describe the biggest difference in terms of the overall sound of the Super Mario All-Stars version of the game from the original in one word, it would be warmth. With the overhaul of Super Mario Bros. On the SNES, Nintendo utilized all of the benefits of the console's sound chip. The soundtrack, while capturing the sounds of those original iconic tunes from Super Mario Bros., really enhances them, giving a more atmospheric and immersive quality to the originals. The sound is much more polished and loses that static quality of the original. More instrument voices were also possible with the Super Nintendo sound chip, and everything from floaty marimba to deep timpani sounds are utilized. The sound effects are also in keeping with this warmer sound, and while it certainly fits perfectly with the music, may not necessarily be a vast improvement from the original, which in some ways felt a bit more satisfying. As innovative as Super Mario Bros. Was in sound and vision, the core of what makes Super Mario Bros. One of the greatest and most groundbreaking games in history is, of course, in its gameplay. Creator Shigeru Miyamoto, alongside Takashi Tezuka, took all of the experience of working with the games Devil's World and Excitebike and implemented Miyamoto's version of a platform game that would require the player to, quote, strategize while scrolling sideways. This allowed for much larger, more complex level design than other games of the era. Additionally, the fast-scrolling levels would be complemented well with Mario moving at a more accelerated rate rather than at a constant speed, like an Excitebike. This allowed the player to have more freedom in movement, to slow down to catch that mushroom, or build momentum to jump over a pit. The power-ups were another huge element. Miyamoto had originally envisioned a larger playable character, like the Devil in Devil's World. However, this would ultimately culminate in the Super Mushroom, which would allow Mario to grow from small to big. This is immediately presented to the player in the beginning of the very first level, where small Mario can catch a mushroom out of one of the very first blocks. These innovations made a huge impact, and for a very addictive gameplay formula that set the standard for its era. The Super Mario All-Stars version of Super Mario Bros. Largely stays faithful to the original in its gameplay, with a few minor tweaks, such as when the player hits a block. In the original, Mario or Luigi rebounds quickly downwards, while in the All-Stars version, they continue to move upwards and fall down slowly. Glitches were also removed, including the entire minus world from the original, although stuff like the 1-up Koopa Shell trick was kept. In this regard, the Super Mario All-Stars version feels perhaps slightly more sturdy than the original, but that doesn't necessarily make it better. Indeed, in the case of the original Super Mario Bros., it's sometimes the little imperfections that make the game truly special. And there's no denying in terms of innovation and the mark that the original made on the industry, which version was more groundbreaking. So which version of Super Mario Bros. Is better? I personally believe that a compelling argument can be made for both games. The original Super Mario Bros. Gets a nod simply because it was the original version of a truly revolutionary game. It really set the bar high for other games of the era, and while yes, the NES era in general might not hold up in some ways quite as well as the Super NES era, the argument is really quite moot in regards to Super Mario Bros. The All-Stars version clearly has the technical advantage of the two. Its graphics are prettier, its music and sound more immersive, its gameplay perhaps a bit more tightened up, but is all that glitters always gold? The choice, my dear viewer, is entirely up to you. The nostalgia factor may be what pushes one version slightly above the other for you, but as for my own verdict, I'm gonna say that while the Super Mario All-Stars version was the game that I played first and had the most nostalgia for, and heck, might be my personal favorite version of the two, I think it's undeniable that the original Super Mario Bros. Was really the game that set the template for everything that came after it. No matter which way the Koopa Shell is kicked, both versions of Super Mario Bros. Are a testament to the time, attention to detail, and love that the developers put into what truly is one of the greatest video games of all time. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video, I really appreciate it. I'm going to try to do other comparison videos like this in the future. I want to at least do the other Super Mario Brothers games because for some reason I'm just fascinated by the differences between the original versions and the various remakes and remasters of those games. But, you know, I could see this being a series that continues onward in the future in some way. So if you like this video, I'd really appreciate some feedback on it. And if you're unfamiliar with this channel, I would really appreciate it if you would check out our friendly neighborhood Discord to get a little deeper into what this channel is all about. Thank you again, everybody, for watching. See you next time. Peace.